A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kanchi Shah. I head content strategy for Strategic, and it gives me immense pleasure working with you all here to today's webinar on the importance of an agile and flexible data architecture for modern business. I welcome you on behalf of Denodo and Strategic. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of banking and financial services will require new ideas, capabilities, and processes to accomplish tasks faster and at a greater scale. With a shift in customer behavior and sentiment, the customer will be at the forefront of decision making. Today's banking customer expects more, demands faster access, and anticipates better results than in the past. Banks and financial institutions are also under significant pressure to simplify their systems and processes to reduce overall effort, cost, risk, and complexity of operations. The BFSI sector today is not only looking for solutions to make sense of data available to them, but are increasingly seeking solutions to connect the different data that they produce and consume. As we move towards an increasingly digitally connected and hyper-dependent world, acting upon data insights produced in silos will only yield limited impact. Therefore, unlocking the value of data requires a real-time and integrated approach to data management. With this as a driver, we'd now like to kick off today's session with a keynote on the importance of an agile and flexible data architecture for modern businesses. Please join me as I welcome Ms. Katrina Bridges, Senior Product Marketing Manager for Denodo. Over to you, Katrina.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Katrina Bridges, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for Denodo, Asia Pacific. Today, I'm going to be talking about the importance of an agile and flexible data architecture for modern business. Before we get started, what I'm going to do is talk about some of the challenges that face organizations from a modern data analytics perspective, and then we'll talk about a potential solution to that. So just a bit of background, there are many challenges facing data and analytics professionals. We live in a complex world with data coming at us from all angles. And if we look at the history of how data has evolved over the years, you will see how some of this complexity has arisen. In the 1980s and 90s, when databases first emerged, if people wanted to query or find out information about a part of the business, they would run a simple query against a database, a SQL query, or they might code something in order to retrieve the information they need. This evolved into more decision support systems and executive information systems, and the start of data warehousing in the 1990s, and the emergence of BI and reporting tools like Crystal and Business Objects and Cognos and more. But as we moved into the 2000s, the internet was more prominent, and we had larger volumes of data, new sources of data such as social and cloud platforms emerged as well. So we had more and more disparate data sources across different locations. But by the time we get to the 2020s, data is effectively everywhere. We have larger data volumes again, and we used to talk about the 3 V's, volume, velocity, and variety, and we certainly have that. And now we need to start to talk about the 3 D's, which is distributed, diverse, and dynamic. So how do we solve some of these challenges in this distributed, diverse, complex data ecosystem that most organizations have? And how do we be dynamic to support the modern needs of business? Well, at Denodo, we believe that the answer could be that data does not need to be a destination anymore. We have a distributed data ecosystem, but we can start to minimize the amount of data moving around the organization and look at an alternative path, the logical path. So I'm going to talk about the concept of a data fabric, which is an architectural approach before we get into the logical approach, just to set the scene. This is a definition we have. A data fabric is an architecture pattern that informs and automates the design, integration, and deployment of data objects regardless of deployment patterns, and architectural approaches. So what does that really mean? The visual, as the visual shows there, it's like a net that's being cast out across all of your data assets so that you can better leverage the data regardless of its type and location. So there's some key attributes to a data fabric. One, the ability to integrate data from disparate sources. Two, the ability to provide a secure and integrated view of different data objects. Three, the ability to integrate data, but consume it via any tool or application. And lastly, a data fabric concept would allow the automation and continual improvement of the entire process using artificial intelligence or machine learning. And I'll talk about that more in a moment. So what is a logical data fabric? Well, this is an alternative approach to a physical data fabric. It's a particular style. It's an abstraction layer that sits between the data sources and the consuming applications at the top. And it's powered by the concept of data virtualization, which is a technology that allows easy access to data, but also makes that data consumable by any application. It's a logical layer that represents the physical underlying data sets. And the logical data fabric does not store data. It leaves data where it is. It stores the metadata about those data sets. So you get visibility across all of your corporate assets, and you're able to discover what data is available, particularly via the data catalog that Denodo provides, the box on the right there. But what it allows you to do is provide consistent, trustworthy data. And that's because the logic for integrating and exposing data is controlled and maintained in a single place. So there's no duplication of that logic across different tools and solutions that are addressing different use cases across the organization. And what that also means is it hides the complexity of the underlying sources from those data consumers within your organization. So let's look at the Denodo Logical Data Platform in more detail. There's really three premises to the logical data fabric, and that's connect, combine, and consume without having to do data movement, as little as possible, and being able to deliver data results in the most performant way. So if we start on the left-hand side, we can see that there are connectors to all sorts of different types of data: structured, unstructured, multidimensional, arrays, streaming data, IoT data. There's a range of different data that's supported, and there'll be more to come in the future as well. If we just jump to the right-hand side there for a moment, we've got all the different types of applications that need to consume data across the organization. Of course, there's lots of different personas that need to consume that data as well. So the middle section is the logical layer, and that's the layer that sits between the sources and the consuming applications, and it's responsible for the access and the integration and the delivery of the data. So it's a logical data delivery layer that manages some of the use cases that we're talking about there on the screen. So you'll see on the left-hand side, the left top, logical data abstraction. So once again, it's a logical representation of the underlying data sources. But if we move down here, we've got the out-of-the-box query acceleration and optimization capability through the built-in optimization engine within Denodo. If we move down to the bottom there, we've got real-time data integration. So rather than delivering data in traditional methods where it's very hard to get real-time data, when we're tapping into the source, we're able to get the most current, fresh data. Now, having a layer across all of your data assets means that you're able to better secure and govern your data ecosystem and apply the security policies that are required to make sure that data is secured and only delivered to those that are allowed to see the data. And then if we move around further, you'll see that there's advanced semantics and active data catalog. Now, what that means is all of the technical metadata about the data ecosystem is brought in from those sources, but we can complement that with business metadata as well. Custom metadata, we might want to know the quality of the data, the owner of the data, the person responsible if there's a problem with the data. There's lots of information about a data set that can be very important and critical to a business user determining whether that data is fit for purpose, fit for their business purpose. And then lastly, AI and ML recommendations. Data usage can be tracked through a data virtualization layer, which means that you know who's accessing what data and when. And that's not only useful from an auditing perspective, it's also very valuable to assess and determine the future needs of your data consumers. For instance, if there's a group of users that are targeting an operational system and they're all running very similar queries, why have them all hit that operational system at different times? Why not provide a summary of that information to accelerate query delivery? So there's AI that we've built into the platform. Machine learning algorithms are being used to look at that usage data and determine the best summaries that might be provided to key user groups within the data consuming community. Now, Denodo can be deployed on any platform as well, on-premise, cloud, or a combination of both. But where does AI really fit into the equation here, that continual improvement to data delivery? Let's dig deeper on that a little bit more. With Denodo, what we have is visibility into our data assets, first of all, and that's via the data catalog. You'll see a screenshot on the screen there on the right. So things like data ownership, data profiling, data lineage, tagging of data assets, categorization of your data, even, as I mentioned, custom metadata fields like data quality ratings are all visible within the data catalog. So you'll see that you have a snapshot of all your data assets, all of your views, your web services, how they've been categorized, your most frequently used queries, and even some recommendations there. And as I mentioned, they're brought through some of the machine learning capabilities that are built into the underlying product. So the usage statistics are captured, and customers can control how often and frequently the statistics are captured. But what this means is they can be leveraged through the recommendation engine that Denodo has, and they can provide two unique ways in which data can be used. One, to recommend, as I mentioned, a selective materialization of data. It could be a cache data set that could be used for query acceleration and ongoing performance. And secondly, to be able to recommend data sets through the data catalog to different data consumers. So it could be as simple as your colleagues are using similar data sets that you might be interested in, just like you get a recommendation in Netflix for a movie or a series along those lines. But within the data catalog, security is maintained as well. So you're only able to look at the data that you're authorized to access. So how does this stack up in the real world? Here I want to talk about a study that was completed by the Forrester Analyst Group called the Total Economic Impact Report of using data virtualization. And this report highlights some key areas in cost savings, both in time and cost. But it really focuses on the return on investment that can be expected by taking an alternate approach to data management and data delivery, and you leveraging the power of data virtualization to deliver data faster. So you'll see there's 83% reduction in time to value. Why is that? That's because data virtualization is reducing the amount of data movement and all of the supporting processes for the data pipelines that have been built. So by being able to tap in directly to the source and not have to move and model data for different purposes can really provide significant benefits and savings. The next one is around 67% reduction in data preparation efforts. Now, why would that be? As I mentioned, when you're using a data virtualization layer, you're able to build and maintain the business logic for preparing data all in one place. So you're not having to replicate it in different locations. So you've got savings there as well. The next one is 65% decrease in delivery times over ETL. Why is that? That's because data virtualization uses a logical approach to model the business data and access it directly from the source. But if you look at this report, there's other significant benefits that can be gained as well. For instance, we're able to accelerate some of our AI and ML initiatives by about 30% by providing data scientists with the tools and the ability to leverage the data virtualization platform so that they can also leverage existing data sets and repurpose data as much as possible. But the interesting one for me was knowledge workers were found to be 50% more productive. And that really allows them to be more effective and frees up more time. And the reason why they're more productive is because they can discover data through the data catalog. They can sample the data, look at all of the associated business metadata about that data so that they can ensure they're selecting the right data for the right purpose. So just to conclude the session today, in summary, there are still data complexities within all organizations. And the concept of a logical data fabric can be found to provide a very agile and flexible approach to managing not only your data assets, but the delivery of data through different consuming applications. So as mentioned, the logical data fabric or the logical data platform that Denodo provides encourages more data governance. You have visibility into all of your data, and you can start to apply user groups and security policies and data masking and encryption and row-based policies, column-based, or even down to cell level, so that you're able to control how that data is being delivered and seen by the user. And the next benefit really is the reduction in the amount of IT effort. The more self-service and through the data discovery, data catalog that Denodo provides, the more that business users can service themselves and less reliance on IT. They become a bottleneck and delivery can become slow. So the more self-sufficient the users can be on being able to find and access the data they need, the better. And lastly, the data catalog provides a very business-friendly interface that allows all types of users to find data. And it's really a great way of democratizing data across the organization. And with that, that concludes the presentation for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katrina, for taking us through an amazing presentation and for setting the ball rolling for the day. Let's now move forward and hear from eminent business and technology leaders as they share their thoughts on the importance of an agile and flexible data architecture for modern business. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Milind Mungale, Executive Vice President and CISO for Protein e-Government Technologies. Mr. Tarun Pandey, Executive Vice President, IT and Head Data for Aditya Birla Capital. They are in a conversation with Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Knowledge Officer, Strategy. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello and welcome. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, and today I'm going to be in conversation with two very, very eminent gentlemen from the BFSI sector within India, CIOs and IT leaders with a wealth of experience between them, to talk about the future of banking and financial services, as will require, with the power of data, new ideas, capabilities, and processes to accomplish tasks faster and at a greater scale. The BFSI sector today, ladies and gentlemen, is not only looking for solutions to make sense of the data available to them, but are also increasingly, perhaps, seeking solutions to connect the different data that they produce and consume. As we move towards an increasingly digitally connected and hyper-dependent world in a manner of the word, acting upon data insights produced in silos will only yield minimal impact. Therefore, unlocking the true value of data with virtualization and visualization requires a real-time and integrated approach to data management. And to talk to me about all of this, please put your hands together to welcome Milind Mungale and Tarun Pandey, eminent gentlemen from within industry and old friends too. Milind, Tarun, welcome. A privilege as always.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tarun, if I could come to you, sir. Uh, if you were to look at the last 15 to 18 months, perhaps, and the importance the data has started becoming in terms of its ability to help organizations move forward in a much more accelerated fashion. What are your perspectives on how new techniques in data virtualization can significantly accelerate and craft superior business outcomes, such as fiscal inclusion, retention, and perhaps increased wallet share?
Thank you, Arjun, for inviting us. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share our thoughts. Don't know, you said experts. I don't classify myself as an expert. I'm just one of the others trying to do what is best for the organization.
Indeed, sir.
But when we talk about data, see, it's no more a question, no more, there are no two doubts about it, that data is one of the most important ingredients that any organization has. And typically in banking and financial services, I think data is the key because that's our product. We don't have a physical product like a manufacturing, like a toothpaste, like an iPhone or something. All we have is data and dreams of people. And how do we help them achieve their dreams by utilizing the money in the right manner? And that's actually utilizing the data that we have. So it's really very important. And last 15, 18 months to 2 years have really taught us where physical meetings were not happening, where we were all struggling to see how do we reach out to our customer, how do we make his life interesting, how do we understand him better, where we didn't have access to lot many physical things. Data played a key role. And people who have used data in last, who have really used the data in last few months have started realizing the benefits of it. But one of the discussions that we're having, we are still scratching the surface. Most of us have really not dug deeper. And that's where the true potential will lie in. How do most of us have started using data for cross-sell, for understanding certain demographics of the customer, for segmentation. But I think the true value will unfold when you start digging deeper, when you start looking at multiple parameters at the same point of time to give you really insights, really useful insights, which will really make a difference to your revenue, to your profitability, to your customer experience, to productivity. And that's what everybody is working towards too. So this is a journey that's begun. Okay, all of us have been talking about data for last 5-6 years, but last 2 years, actually the journey has really started and has taken off. Still a long way to go, still a long way to go. When you bring in a larger ecosystem, when you start collaborating with multiple stakeholders, your ecosystem partners, your bureaus, when you start, and people have started doing that, but when you start putting this bigger ecosystem together, you will start getting better insights.
No, absolutely true. I couldn't agree with you more, Tansa, because that's one of the aspects of what you mentioned is what I want to bring to you, Milind Saab, with your permission, which is this whole concept of the data exchange. Because the BFSI sector by itself in recent years has seen the emergence of new models of financing, new business models, the development of new technical innovation, all of which relies on the digital exchange of financial data. In that sense, in a regulated industry, as regulated as it is in the BFSI sector, what are the perhaps data-related issues that need to be addressed before data can be put to its most optimum use?
So when we look from the point of view of data-related issues, we must understand that there is a maturity phase for everything, be it technology, be it process, practice, or even the people's willingness and awareness to use anything new. And probably the data related aspects have now matured over the last 1.5 to 2 years due to pandemic. And the biggest advantage of this pandemic in this area was that data started getting consolidated and in a digital form. maybe even though we are more than 3 decades into computerization, we must know that still there were so many manual processes, still there were so many small houses which were completely onto physical data that have in last 2 years come into digital form. The second thing that I see is that data per se, if you look, was not known to be very valuable in terms of monetary terms. People have started understanding the monetary value of data. So instead of giving away data, they know now that data can be a revenue source.
Indeed.
So no one wants to part away with the data. They say, I will let you use my data, but you cannot have my data. Now, how do we make that happen? If I have to let anyone use my data, but I don't want to have a permanent copy of it, which they can use and reuse, then the only way is to make them my data available on demand and make them my data available only on need to know basis. For example, if an credit score agency was to give all the data to all the banks, because all the banks may need a particular individual's credit score if he makes an application for a loan, that would mean that credit score industry would not exist at all, because the banks would not be required to rely on them once the data is transferred, and they would only be required to have an incremental data or updates. But we must understand that everyone need not be there in each banking system for a simple reason that not everyone is going to apply for a loan to all the banks. And taking this very simple and a very old example, what I'm trying to explain is that as a bank also, the entity doesn't want to have a burden of maintaining, securing that data, because there are liabilities if there is a problem with that data, both in terms of reputation as well as in terms of monetary gains. And so probably this data virtualization concept is maturing. Probably that is the reason why people say that if I can get on demand any data, which I can use just for the purpose that I want to use, and if I need it again, I will again go back and fetch that data, then why do I need to keep a copy of it, secure it, have a burden of it, and after Data Privacy Act comes, take consent of those people to retain that data and use that data? So probably that is what is picking up, and still it is not matured. As Tarun also said, that people are trying to collaborate. The technology has now helping them because of high-speed network like 5G and all that. They are helping them to fetch that data instantaneously. Today, we can have an online KYC and opening of an bank account within no time. By the time you ask a question to Tarun, I'm not even talking about Tarun's answer. I'm saying by the time you ask a question to Tarun, probably I can open another window and open an online account in some bank.
Indeed.
So that's the beauty of it. But how can they open my account when I'm talking from my laptop? They don't even know my IP. I'm connected on a public network. That is because of data virtualization. They can fetch my KYC instantaneously.
Then by that measure, Tarun sir, if I could bring this to you, the ability for an organization to forge an intelligent route or journey ahead also lies in its ability to connect, introspect, and govern any data source at any given point in time, which is the ability to quickly connect disparate structured as well as unstructured data sources. What do you see the challenges in this currently, and how should organizations or CIOs, IT leaders even commence this approach in being able to connect disparate data sources?
Interesting, because that's a catch-22 question. That brings in, and I've had experiences and struggled over it. Okay, so when people talk about data and monetizing data, there are two ways to go about it. Either discover all your data and then start, or you pick up a use case and then start capturing that data or gathering that data.
True.
Okay, so this is a catch-22 situation. No one side is, no one answer is the right answer. Okay, depends on organization to organization. But the challenge that we have is the legacy data. Okay, last few years, a lot of data has been started coming in a digital format. Okay, the first challenge comes in, what about the physical data that we have in the application forms? Okay, because application forms will pick up a lot of data and only a percentage of it goes into your structured systems. Okay, so there is a abundance of data lying there which can give you much more insights. Okay, so that's the first problem. Second, last few years have taught us and made us aware that everything is digital. Okay, and we collect so
We seem to have lost Tarun
and
there.
breaking it up. When you start breaking it up, structured will come from your RTBMS systems. Okay, and the moment you move into unstructured or semi-structured, the moment you come to the unstructured side, that's where the Pandora's box opens.
Of course.
Okay, unstructured, semi-structured. So you have data coming in your mails, which has become a huge source of data. Now from your social media, WhatsApp, and all those applications, because now we have the bots running there also. So huge amount of data coming in, and then pictures, videos. Okay, so many different formats. So I think the way I feel is first get your structured data in place, discover the data, do the whole data mapping.
Indeed.
And visualize where your data is. You need not always pick up every data that you need because that might not be relevant at every point of time. So start attacking by mapping your data, trying to do a data visualization is to see how your data is looking. What is the structured data? What is the unstructured data? And then don't open the Pandora's box of, okay, taking a stress that every data is important, every data is important. Every data is not important. For every KPI, every data is not important. For every insight, every data is not important. Start identifying what are the key insights you want to go through. Okay, what are the use cases that you want? Then start looking at what is the data, what are the different KPIs, what are the different parameters, where they are lying. Because you have done a data mapping and visualization, you know where those information is lying. Then start pulling that relevant set of information for doing your insights. Now, a lot of this information would be yours, which is the company's. But today, majority of the information is actually coming from third-party sources.
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Whether they are stakeholders, whether they are part of an ecosystem, whether they are the bureaus. Now the challenge comes in, do you want to store every data? Because then it's the overkill of data. That's where you can start committing a harakari. When you start worrying about every data, you start bringing in every data, then you have a different set of challenges on storage, speed, compute, resources, all those stuff. So, and that's where this technology of visualization is actually helping. That's where the technology has really matured enough, as Milind said, either through an API or through a scraping or through an integration, pick up the data that you need at that point of time, use it, get your insights done, throw away the data.
No, I couldn't agree more with you, Tarun sir, because in fact, I'm able to recollect a Gartner statement or a prediction in their market guide for data virtualization a few years back, where they said through 2022, 60% of all organizations will perhaps implement data virtualization as one key delivery style in the data integration architecture. Because Milind sir, I want to bring to you a very important conversation that Tarun brought to the fore. This whole concept of digital, which also has and rests on one of the critical pillars of data science. Because as artificial intelligence and machine learning increasingly become the core of the digital revolution, these technologies are also providing organizations with better insights, better decisions, and enhanced competitive advantage. In your view, therefore, what is the role that AI and ML will play in the overall scheme of helping organizations, IT leaders, and CIOs build a robust data architecture and couple that with great virtualization to be able to actually accelerate orientation of value?
Yeah, good question, Arjun. Let us look at AI/ML first. First and foremost thing to answer this question, I will need a couple of minutes to establish the need of AI/ML.
Absolutely, sir.
Now, if I have, as Tarun said, if I have digitized my last 15 years of data and it is all lying in one place, I would not need AI/ML at all, because as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, there is nothing to look at it. As far as machine learning is concerned, that is a one-time batch job. Now, when we look from AI/ML, the most important thing is that it is an continuous 24/7 kind of an monitoring and reviewing operation.
True.
Why do you need to keep on doing machine learning? And why do we need artificial intelligence to keep on analyzing what has come from the machine learning and use it to, on the spot, develop certain algorithmic equations and process that data? The most important thing is that unlike older days, even 5 years back, the data today is highly dynamic. Just by looking at my Facebook page, you may be able to know my tone of today, but you cannot dwell on that tone tomorrow.
Perhaps not at all.
Tomorrow, you have to again look at my Facebook page to see, okay, what's Milind saying today? And that's exactly why the AI and ML comes into the play, because you have to continuously learn what is happening with the data. The same set of data may be continuously changing. And as Tarun said, though technologies are available, ultimately, when you scrape or you source or you pick up data from anywhere, there has a huge data which needs to be mined, isn't it? Out of hundreds and thousands and
And not just
millions
mind,
of,
it's also got to be cataloged.
yeah, so hundreds, thousands and millions of data element that you capture every moment. How do you know how much part of it is useful? How do you know which is it that is going to be useful for your use case, and what other data you have to simply dump? And that is where humanly it is not possible. Fixed algorithms will fail drastically, and so AI and ML is required. And I think AI and ML is the technology which is going to be replacing all static algorithms in times to come.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Because that also brings me to an important question, Tarun sir, which I will bring to you, because I do have a view on the clock and we've got about 10, 15 minutes of this very fascinating conversation ahead of us. This whole concept of data democratization. In your view, Tarun sir, what and how should CIOs, IT leaders, even organizations by and large approach the whole concept of data democratization in its truest sense? How do enterprises democratize data?
Ah,
That's
you know,
high.
big terminologies that comes from people like you. Okay. Let's look at the first factor when you
Indeed.
said data democratization. Okay. Is it a reality or is it a myth? Okay.
Oh, that would be a conversation at a very theosophical level, wouldn't it?
No. Because the reason why I said it, the very first angle which brings in this question is the human nature.
Of course.
This is mine. This data belongs to me. Okay. This is under my span of control. So that's the reason I'm saying, is it reality or is it theoretical? Okay.
It's perhaps in the application then, but I will let you.
Yeah. See, I'll tell you, we used to talk about a single source of data, single source of truth. Okay. Are those days gone? Maybe. I am of the view that those days are going. Because
Indeed.
there's no single source of truth. And as Milind also, I'll just take the same example. You pick up my data today from a social media, it tells you a different frame of mind that I'm in. I'm at a different place. Okay. Tomorrow you look at my data, I am probably in a different frame of mind because I'm at a different sort. Yesterday I might have been at a temple, so I might have been in a spiritual mode, so you can probably target spirituality. Tomorrow I'm sitting in a casino. Okay, I'm giving two vastly different.
Yeah, fairly geographically dislocated places that you've mentioned.
Extremes, two ends of extremes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So tomorrow I'm in a different frame of mind. Tomorrow, my needs are different. When I'm at a spiritual place, my needs are different. I would be looking at different set of things. When I'm in a fun place, my requirements are different. So can you tell who is Saran Pandey looking at one set of data on one day?
Well, it'll be contextual then.
It is contextual. Okay, that's where the whole concept comes in. Second, okay, some information is lying in, let's say, my social media.
Of course.
Some of my information is lying with the bureaus.
Absolutely.
And some of my information and a lot of my information is lying here.
Absolutely.
Okay. So which is the source of truth?
A combination of them, perhaps.
Yeah. So that's where data democratization will help. Okay, because now the data is moving from a single source, from single place, which was inside the organization, to multi sources. And this is what is going to change everything. Edge. The edge network, edge data is going to play a lot of role. Okay, so do you want to bring everything in? Brings back to the same old question. You want to bring everything in and say, this is mine? It's not yours. And if you bring everything in, you're dead. And that's where the whole concept, if you mix up the concept, if you integrate the concept of democratized data, virtualization, using technologies, going through the edge networks to compute things, that's where is the real value of data monetization is going to come. Otherwise, you want to monetize the data, but you are struggling with the whole set of resources that you need. Okay, whole set of boundaries that you'll have to define. And in financial services, the regulations. Okay, regulators today also are exploring this. They are trying to understand it. The way regulators took time to understand the cloud and then everybody started favoring cloud, the data virtualization and data democratization is also something that is coming up now. Okay, and as things mature, as we go over a period of time, this process will also mature. And that's where, as I said earlier, it's a journey.
Of course.
It's a journey. So we are at one stage of journey. We are different people are at different maturity stages, and we will mature over a period of time. And there is no right maturity for any organization because businesses are dynamic. You would have a different need. Somebody would be targeting on customers. Somebody would be at that particular point of time would be targeting on productivity. Somebody would be targeting on revenue. Okay, so everyone has a different horizon to go to at that particular point of time. So there is no right or wrong. There is no right maturity. So where you are in that journey and how you are using these technologies will define your growth.
Milind, I want to bring you in here equally for your perspectives on this whole debate and this narrative about data democratization and what it means for security, privacy, yet compliance with regulators and what clearly is a very regulated industry.
So if we look from the point of view of data democratization, one of the most important thing is data localization. Now, if I want to use some data, and if the law of the country says that the data has to be locally stored, and even if I need to use it in some other place, I don't think I'll be able to store it in that place because then I will be actually violating the law of that particular country. So in a way, data virtualization becomes an answer. That I pick up the data, I use it and I dump it. I'm not storing it. So data localization is not defined. And I still get the most current data. From security point of view, now the advantage of this data virtualization plus data democratization is that data is still at one source. And the security of that data needs to be taken care of by the entity who is hosting that data. If I'm going to simply use that data and after that not retain that data because I know on demand I can pull up that data again, I don't store it. And if I don't store it, I don't have to worry about the security of that data. So in a way, if you look, it is helping reduce the risk on multiple organizations and it is providing necessary monetary support to that organization which is hosting the data. Because if 10 organizations are going to use that data, if they source that data, they buy that data one time, whatever way the earlier ways of doing business was, then all the 10 will have to invest into the securing that data permanently. But if one data source is available to all these 10 on demand, and if all these 10 organizations are willing to pay as they use the data, of course, that one data source will always be very careful about storing the data securely, because now it has got attached with their creditability. And I think BFSI industry is highly maturing into this particular thing in two ways. One is all the BFSI players know that information is the new currency.
Of course it is.
Today, if a choice is given, I think people will want to steal data from a bank than the money from the bank, because that data will be much more valuable than the money that is associated with that data. And from that point of view, as data and information is the new currency, I think BFSI knows very well that collaboration is the only way to secure it.
No, I couldn't agree more, Milind, with what you've said and also what Tarun articulated.
Just one more point I would like to add over here is that those competitors are now collaborating.
That's very important, isn't it?
And
Tarun,
that
you
is,
wanted to...
that is the beauty of,
Please to
yeah,
complete.
that is the beauty of this data democratization. They say,
Tarun,
look,
you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, so one thing that I wanted to bring in is that because it's data, okay, security is becoming much more critical. Because as rightly Milind said, if given a choice, I would prefer to steal the banks and the bureau's data rather than the money, because then I know everything and then I will target something else. So security is becoming very, very important. Okay, and that's where the whole privacy laws are coming in, and they're becoming more stringent.
Very true.
Okay. So while this is a separate topic and we can keep on debating on it, okay, we can have a beautiful discussion on it some other time, maybe some other session that you plan for.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more on this, gentlemen. Tarun sir, Milind sir, it's been fascinating just speaking to you about this.
Arjun, just let me add one thing. Okay. Because of now data democratization that we're talking about, okay, and data lying at so many places, and because now you're collaborating with the whole ecosystem, okay, including your competitors, as Milind said. See, the way that it should move in, why should I bring in the data? I use the data, I don't even pull the data. Use the data, get my insight, and I use that insight. Because ultimately, data has no value unless and until it is an information. Okay, you're creating that information, you are visualizing that data, you create that visualization, you gain your insights. And it's the insights that you data is still okay.
I couldn't agree more.
So security point of view, multiple concepts are addressed. There's a lot of work has gone in.
And much work will be performed ahead also. No, fascinating, gentlemen, but I do have a view on the clock. That's all the time that we have for this particular segment. Milind sir, Tarun sir, absolute privilege as always, and I'm sure this lovely audience would have heard so many beautiful perspectives that they will bring to bear on data transformation strategies tomorrow. Thank you so very much. Brilliant speaking to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Arjun.
Thank you. That's all from us. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a second now for the next segment.
Thank you very much, Milind, Tarun, and Arjun for that engaging conversation. Thank you for shining the light on how organizations can orchestrate the ability to unlock value from data with the right approach. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we move forward to our next segment, which is the Innovation Dialogues. And we have with us Mr. Prashant Lely, Sales Director, Denodo, who's in a fireside conversation with Mr. Arjun Vishwanath, Chief Knowledge Officer, Strategic. Over to the both of you.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, and I'm going to be in conversation with a subject matter expert. who spent years in the business of helping Indian industry accelerate its journey towards value orientation, growth, success, and many, many more metrics that are critical to organizations in their resurgence and revival. And with all of this, what my eminent friend from within industry today is going to be speaking about is about the whole concept of how data is the new currency and increasingly the peripherals associated with data. Prashant Lele, welcome, sir, and delighted and privileged to have you with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Prashant, you've been catching in on the conversations that we've been having with the external CIOs, with Indian industry, and a lot of very passionate narratives and dialogues around the whole concept of how data must be leveraged today, because it's also existential in nature, and for organizations that don't do it judiciously will tend to face fewer successes than others. But in all of this, an important narrative that came about was that as organizations leverage increasingly vast amounts of data, the importance of data democratization suddenly has become the big elephant in the room. And my question to you, therefore, which I bring to you from the perspective of industry, Prashant, is why, in your view, both from Denoda's point of view as well as an industry practitioner, should enterprises democratize data? Prashant.
Sure. Thank you, Arjun. Good question. If I have to answer this, let me take you back, the journey that you and have crossed. 30 years back when we started working, the setup was pretty simple in our organization. You have a couple of servers having the data sources,
Indeed.
and they are all on premise. And then people were using desktops or maybe dumb terminals to access the data. So the requirement from the business was to access the data during the working hours, and data was available in, say, a couple of servers within on-premise within the organization. Then came the era of laptops. So we started carrying laptop, bringing it home, and started working from home. So the requirement got slightly changed that I also want to access the data beyond my office working hours. On the other side of the data, we got cloud in the picture. So data sources started becoming at multiple locations, from on-premise as well as to cloud.
Only multiple single sources of data.
Yes, absolutely. So IT job was to manage all that part. Then came the third wave. We got handheld device. I think BlackBerry started that. So
Yeah,
people started working at whatever place they are. For 30 seconds, I want to work because I know I'm in a traffic jam or I'm at a signal, and I just want to access some report, take some decision, reply to somebody. So my requirement got changed. And on the other side of the data sources, we got multiple cloud instances. SaaS-based companies came in the picture. They started offering SaaS-based solutions with the data source with their own. So it's multiple clouds and multiple data sources and on-premise, and then multiple people trying to access the data literally 24/7 to take the decision. So that's where we are today. Business wants all the data available all the time because they want to take decision quickly as well as they want to take the accurate decision. And the simple reason for doing that is to take the right business decision, because if you can't take a right decision quickly, your competition is going to take that.
Indeed.
And if your competition is going to take that, you're going to lose the business. So this is actually driving the data democratization in all the organizations. The basic requirement of business that I need all the data available all the time so that I can take accurate and fast decisions.
Interesting, Prashant, because and I love what you just mentioned about the three stages or the three waves or the three journeys. Really, my question to you, therefore, is that today, when we sit in 2022, the year, and we look ahead, we've got a fairly remote or a distributed workforce that is generating or accessing distributed data. In that kind of an ecosystem, how do you see enterprises being able to very seamlessly and yet in an actionable manner democratize the use of data?
Sure. So the setup today, as I explained, is like you have data at multiple locations and data in multiple formats, because you don't have control over your SaaS service provider. He might store in some particular format. So when people want to access the data, the basic requirement would be you should have a solution that will be able to connect to all these data sources wherever they are scattered across the globe, and in whatever format they are. I mean, not that every data is structured data. There is unstructured.
Most of it is semi or unstructured, really.
Absolutely. And you really need to consider the unstructured data also before taking a business decision. So you need a solution by which you are able to connect to the data sources, which are unstructured, semi-structured, or structured, and able to integrate that data to create a business data view. Because at the end of the day, business wants a business data view so that they can take a decision. So that's the first requirement, I would say, that comes from the organization, that my data is scattered across the globe. It's in multiple format. I need an integrated data view. They also need that data on a real-time basis as and when they want to access that part. That becomes the second requirement from their side. From business point of view, they don't want a lot of interference of IT every time they want to access the data. So once the activity is done, what they want is I should come, I should connect, I should able to get my data, take the decision and do my business. So these three, I would say, are the broad requirement of business, which we can take care through the Denodo platform, because we have built-in connectors, and those connectors will be able to connect to all type of data sources, pull the relevant data as and when required, integrate that into Denodo layer and make it available for consumption in whatever format the consumer is asking. Because if I'm using a particular commercial tool, I need data in a certain format. If I want to expose that to my business partner, I want to share in the form of, say, APIs, XML or JSON, and I don't want interference from IT to convert that data into different format and I lose my time. The second business unit that would need help is IT.
Of course.
They have a limited budget and they have to handle the requirement of business. So they don't want to spend a lot of money in managing this part. Now, one of the solutions for this would be to replicate multiple copies of the data. That means a lot of additional money you have to spend on the hardware, on the software licenses, and a lot of headache because multiple copies of the
replication
data
is a nightmare for any IT leader that you'd speak to. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. So the biggest headache is like, I really don't know which data is authentic because I have data at multiple locations. So that's the second part which IT wants as a solution, and that's where we can help. And the third part is governance in our organization. I mean, governance team would simply say, I don't care. You allow business to access all the data all the time, but are you following the security and governance rules that we are asking you to follow? And the onus is on IT to ensure and give that comfort level to governance team that we have managed everything. So that I would say would be the third department or the third type of a requirement from an organization when it comes to making this kind of arrangement. Now, when it comes to organization like Denodo, what we have is a data management platform.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you.
Yes. So let me come to that. I just wanted to talk initially about the problems that people want to solve and the different divisions within the organizations. I mean, governance would not allow you to compromise on security. IT would not allow you to compromise on cost, and business would not allow you to compromise on delay in terms of accessing the data.
Absolutely.
So you have to look at these three different problems as one problem of organization instead of thinking about three different departments trying to solve their problem. So when you deploy a solution like a data management platform of Denodo, what we have is built-in connectors through which we can connect to all type of data source. What we have is a security and governance framework as a part of platform in which you can do the data masking. So you can define the rules, who has access for what, and we would follow that. You can go down to the level of masking a particular row, a column, or even an individual cell for that particular user. And this platform gives you the real-time audit report in terms of who is accessing what data and when. And you can export that report and store it externally if you want to do the audit. So your governance team is also pretty happy once you define those rules, once you follow those rules, and once you create the audit report. And we don't replicate the data. We simply connect, we do data abstraction, and then we create metadata and store that. And as and when the query is fired, we just get relevant data from the data source. So no replication, no relocation in case of Denodo platform. So no additional cost to IT in terms of maintaining and storing that data. So we handle this problem as a one problem and not as three different problems.
So simply put, you make it easy for any department within any organization, specifically in the BFSI sector, to be able to seamlessly work with what they're supposed to do, which is work with the data without worrying about the back end of it, fundamentally, isn't it? If you could give us, Prashant, with your permission, a few example, maybe a couple of use cases, if you're allowed to, on how Denodo has truly helped organizations.
Sure. So I would love to talk about Prudential. I mean, we all know Prudential because of 1983, right? I mean, when we were kids, we heard about Prudential Cup, and now we know how big they are. So Prudential as an organization, they are there in more than 100 countries, and they do a lot of business in multiple areas in financial services. We know them for insurance, but there are so many other businesses that they do. So they have, imagine the number of data sources they will have in each country and the number of business units. So each business unit will have their own data source. What they have actually done is created a logical data fabric layer, which sits on top of all these data sources, and it is holding all those data sources as if all the business users who are connecting to this logical data fabric has access to all that data. The security and governance rules are also defined at Denodo so that the right people will get access to the right data as defined by the organization, and an audit report will also come in the picture. They have also used Denodo data catalog extensively. Now, Denodo data catalog is a dynamic data catalog which has Google-like search features. Okay. So a business user can simply log in and search for the data source, search for the metadata, search for the reports that are created by his team members if he is authorized to access for that.
Keyword
based. So yes, that makes life very easy for them in terms of searching what they want and getting access for that. And in that way, what Prudential has done is they have created this logical fabric layer on top of all the data sources. Business user need not bother from where the data is coming. They simply go through this fabric layer to access the data that they want and do their business. We have Credit Agricole, we have ANZ Bank in Australia, where all the, I would say, the branch managers, they wanted to access the data about the customers of a particular branch, and then they want to take a decision how they want to do the business. And of course, as a bank, they don't want to give data of one branch to the other branch manager. So all those rules are defined in a platform, and they are able to access the data with whatever tool they have.
Fascinating. Fascinating, Prashant. And this is increasingly becoming, as we are getting warmer, a fantastic conversation. But of course, I do have a view on the clock. I know you've got a hard schedule ahead. Prashant, I think it's also pertinent for me to ask you, as an analyst, also for the benefit of this wonderful audience that's tuning in with us today, is every organization today is on a journey to hyper-competitiveness, value acceleration, and of course, various other financial metrics that will determine their ability to thrive and succeed in the future. In that sense of the word, Prashant, I must ask you, what is Denodo's consultative approach to help industry in this journey? Because it's a fascinating journey, but it's also one that's complex.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. And that's where I think we have a USP here, which I would proudly like to mention. As per Gartner, data virtualization as a technology takes lowest amount of time in completing the project. So if you go for any other technology, the project implementation time is very high, say 6 months to 8 months, or maybe more than that, depending on the volumes, the data sources you have, the business users you have. And till that time, there is no ROI for you. So your business has to wait, give money to IT, trust them, and keep on pushing them to do the implementation. The approach of Denodo is slightly different. First is we start small. We ask business to define the business use case, what problem exactly they want to solve. And then we go live case by case basis or a report by report basis. So the biggest advantage what our customers get is within first month, within second month, they go back to business and they say that we have gone live with this one use case for you. So you guys can go and access and continue as if I have completed the project. And then they keep on doing the other use cases. So the biggest advantage my IT friends get is like once they show to the business that you have gone live with one use case, getting the budget for the next use case becomes very
easier. No, I couldn't agree more with you, Prashant, but I do have a view on the clock. In conclusion and in passing, if I were to, you've got vast years of experience and you've got a brilliant spectrum of visibility into industry. To go back to the first conversation, the first point that we had about data democratization, a lot of the CIOs that I have also spoken with have really questioned, and I ask you this question just in a personal sense, which is, should all data necessarily be made available to everyone?
It depends on the requirement. I mean, we can't ignore the security and governance rules, but if business wants, and if they want to take the decision quickly and accurate decision, and if they need all the data, you really can't stop them from accessing the data as long as your security and governance tool is fine with that.
No, that's actually very nicely put, because at the end of the day, you've got to balance the business outcome versus security and governance, isn't it?
Absolutely.
No,
Absolutely.
fantastic. Prashant, it has been a privilege having spoken to you, heard and listened to your perspectives and views, both from a personal aspect as well as from Denodo's. Thank you for making it with us today. Deeply, deeply grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It was nice talking with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was I, Arjun Vishwanathan, in conversation with Prashant Lele from Denodo. Stay tuned and we'll be back in just a second.
Thank you very much, everyone. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap. I hope that you've had many insights to take away from today's webinar on the importance of an agile and flexible data architecture for modern business. I thank you all for joining us today on behalf of Denodo and Strategic. Ladies and gentlemen, we would request you to please spare a few moments of your time and fill in the feedback form. Your feedback is absolutely essential to us. This will help us enhance the content, structure, and delivery of our conferences. So please feel free to mention any suggestions or recommendations that you have for us. Thank you very much once again, everybody. We look forward to welcoming you at our upcoming webinars and conferences. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and do enjoy the rest of your day.